Hey people of VC, it's Andy, cloudy and milder. Unusual video for me. I don't really do band collection videos that often, but I thought I would do this one. If only because I promised Greg the Egg Blackmore Rules probably over a year ago now that I would. So it's always been in the back of my mind. And I was on a real Girlschool kick a week or two back now, so I thought, well, I've got the albums out, let's go through them. So I have pretty much all the albums, with the exception of one, from the 80s, which was really the Girlschool heyday. So Girlschool were they were a proper band. They were an early 80s hard rock metal band. They weren't one of these girl bands that was put together to sell records based on their looks. If you see pictures of Girlschool, they're denim and leather, and they are about the music and the music only. And I love them for that. They're not trying to sell anything other than the music. So 1980 was when the first Girlschool album came out, and that was Demolition. And you can see there an example of exactly how they look. They're not trying to sell anything else other than the music. So Demolition came out, and the lineup of the band at the time was Kelly Johnson, Kim McAuliffe, Denise Dufert. So lead guitar, vocals, Kelly Johnson, rhythm guitar and vocals, Kim McAuliffe, Denise Dufert, drums, and Enid Williams on bass. Now Kim and Denise are the only sort of ever-present members throughout the years, and there's been a few lineup changes, as a lot of bands did back in the time. My favourite tracks on here would be Demolition Boys, Race with the Devil, which I also have the 7-inch single for, which was backed up with Take It All Away, which is also a fantastic track. Race with the Devil has the catchiest of songs on here. Really catchy riffs on it. It's absolutely superb stuff. Emergency and Deadline as well are also top quality songs on here. This actually has the same producer as Ace of Spades, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher his name. A guy called Tony Mail. Oh, Vic. Vic Mail. Vic, I blame you and you alone, Mail. Maile. So I'm calling him Mail, but it's maybe it may be something else. I don't know. But yes, as I say, same producer as Ace of Spades, but not the same production quality. This is a little bit thin, and it probably has a lot smaller budget than Ace of Spades did. But there's always been a connection between Girlschool and Motorhead, and Lemmy took them under his wing early on, and certainly helped them out a lot. Even in another single I have from that time is this, which is the Motorhead Girlschool, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and that's the two of them collaborating there. I think I got the single as VCRT from Greg the Egg, and you're going to hear his name a lot in this video because he has been instrumental in helping me build up the collection I have, and he's a big Girlschool fan as well. So there's the back of the single. So it's on side A is the song Please Don't Touch. Brilliant song. It's got Denise on drums, Kim on rhythm guitar, Kelly and Fast Eddie on lead guitars, Enid and Lemmy on bass, and Kelly and Lemmy on vocals. And then on the flip side, we have Emergency, which is a Girlschool song with Denise on drums, Eddie on guitar, Lemmy on bass, Eddie on vocals actually as well, and Lemmy on backing vocals. Oh, we also got. Oh, I didn't realise Bomber was on here as well. But is that right? I only thought there was 2 tracks on here. No, there's 2. It threw me that it mentions Bomber down here with Kelly, Denise, Enid, and Kim. Anyway. Also produced by Vic Mail in 1980. So that was the first album. In 1981, they released their second album. Now, oh, sorry, I didn't show you this. Label Geeks. This is the. They were on bronze, as were Motorhead, I believe, at the time. 81 saw their second album, I guess their seminal album, really, Hit and Run. This was their highest charting album and probably my favourite as well. Do the track listing on there. This is a far richer sounding album, much better produced. In fact, there's quite a few songs on here that actually have that Motorhead vibe to them, but it's still Girlschool. So half sound like they're really influenced by Motorhead, and then half of them are a little bit more melodic. But again, they're all sort of quintessentially Girlschool. Certainly, when I say melodic, I don't mean AOR. Sorry, there's examples of that coming up in their later catalogue, but this certainly doesn't fall into that bracket. Girlschool always, which is the band at the time, so again we've got the same lineup. Girlschool always seem to throw in, or they have always thrown in from this album onwards, cover versions, and this one started off with Tush, which I believe is a ZZ Top song, but I'm not actually that familiar with the original. So there we go. So this is 1981, Girlschool, Hit and Run. This one's actually on original 80s red vinyl with the bronze label. Oh, excuse me, get your nose. Moving on to 1982, and while 1982 would see the first lineup change, before we get to that, again, another fantastic item in my collection, courtesy of Greg, is this Girlschool Live and More EP. It implies it's a live album, but there are 6 tracks on here. 2 of them are live, 4 of them are studio. And this is a die cut and probably the biggest label on a record I have ever seen. So we've got side 1 there with a picture of the band, and side 2 with Kelly Johnson on there. This was a Japanese only release in 1982. You see the lyric sheet, half in Japanese, half in English, and the tracks. So the live tracks are Tonight and Demolition Boys. There's that version of Please Don't Touch with Motorhead and Girlschool, and then on the B side we've got Hit and Run, Come On Let's Go, and Furniture Fire. Now Furniture Fire is a B side for the single Emergency. But that's it. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm so pleased I've got this in their collection. I don't know where I would have been able to find a copy of it had Greg not sent it to me, so I'm eternally in his debt for that one. But 1982 studio album, the 3rd album from Girlschool, is Screaming Blue Murder. And as I mentioned before, we've got a lineup change. Here we have Enid Williams was basically burned out from the excessive touring that they were doing, and Lemmy actually recommended Jill Weston. Where is she here? Jill Weston as the replacement. So she joined the band from here on in, and was a mainstay for most of the rest of the 80s. This is a great album. I love it. It's very upbeat. Again, it's different from the last 2, but still unmistakably Girlschool. But it does tend to get some pretty poor reviews online. In fact, I think Girlschool have been dogged by. They didn't get the success they deserved, should we say? Or certainly the success that I think they deserved, and they deserve a place in the rock and roll history for what they brought to the genre. There are some more commercial songs on here, so "Don't Call It Love" is certainly one of those. Let me see the pictures here. There's the track listing. Hellraiser. That's a great track. That's one of my favourite Girlschool tracks. It's straight out of the Motorhead School of Rock. That one, cover versions, "Live With Me," I believe is a Rolling Stones cover. And the album finishes with a really strange song. "Flesh and Blood" is it's just bizarre and may well have contributed to some of those poor reviews that they got, as that's the last song that people would have heard when they were playing the album. I'd skip that one if I were you. So, still on bronze. This is a UK pressing, but again, courtesy of my friend Greg, I also have a Canadian press, which to all intents and purposes looks the same, but is on solid gold records in Canada. The cardstock as well is a lot thicker than the UK one, very flimsy. The Canadian one is a lot thicker, and there's no inner sleeves of note to show with any of these, but that's the solid gold records label. Now, 1983 saw Girlschool go for the more commercial sound, trying to break into the US. Now, I think the wheels fell off here. I'm not a fan of this album at all. There are two really good tracks on here. "Breaking the Rules" and "Breakout," "Knob in the Media," are both rocking songs, but the rest of it is the introduction of keyboards. The drums sound a little bit more kind of. I don't think they're like drum machines, but they certainly sound like that. Maybe overproduced. It was actually produced by Noddy Holder, and it was Noddy Holder producing this album that convinced Kelly Johnson to stay. Now, I don't know if they was told to look moody in this, or whether that was actually the mood of Kelly Johnson at the time, but she wanted to leave the band, and she ultimately did after this album. But this was their attempt to break America, and it was a lot more on the AOR sound than heavy metal. There are 3 covers on here this time. There are 2 Slade covers, High and Dry and Birding in the Heat. I think that's the one. And there's 20th Century Boy as well, which is a T-Rex cover. I really don't care for the covers on this album, considering there are 10 tracks on the album. 3 of them are covers, and only 2 of the original songs I actually like. I can't recommend this album. I know there are some people out there, and I've talked to my Facebook page with somebody on this. It was Pazzy actually, and he really likes this album, but I just don't. I'm glad I've got it in the collection, but that's about it. The subsequent tour after this saw Kelly Johnson leave, and then they were dropped by Bronze. So I think that kind of justifies that it was a rubbish album. Sorry, I've said it. There we go. This is actually a Canadian pressing. I'll say this is another one that I've got thanks to Greg. I would like to get a UK bronze pressing, but as I say, it's just not that good an album that I'm falling on myself to go for it. Now, Girlschool after this. So, whereas I say Play Dirty certainly isn't my favourite album, it's certainly not the worst album that Girlschool released in the 80s. That accolade goes to Running Wild, which was released in 1985. I don't have a copy of that album, and I I don't think I ever will unless somebody were to give me a copy, and then I don't think I'll play it. I've heard it online, and it is horrendous. It's an absolute abomination. It was never released in the UK. It was US and Japan only. They were signed to Mercury Records, and it's pretty much a pop album. Mercury Records saw them as a rival band to bands like Heart, and Heart were established. Heart were good at what they did. Girlschool were never ever going to compete with the likes of Heart, and even the band, if you look online for their comments, even they thought it was rubbish. But there were some lineup changes. So I said Kelly Johnson had left. Chris Bonacci had joined just on lead guitar. Kim took over, I think, mostly on the vocals. And also for the first time, there was a keyboard player listed as well, which was Jackie Bodemead. But as I say, that whole venture was just kind of short-lived. It's the equivalent of The Pack Is Back by Raven, only 10 times worse. Let's move on. As Girlschool did, they returned in 1986 on GWR Records, which was the home of Motorhead again at the time. So Lemmy again looking out for his friends there. And what we got was Nightmare at a Maple Cross. Okay, a bit of a blip there, but where was I? Nightmare at Maple Cross in 1986. Girlschool's return to form in my eyes. Gone are the keyboards, they're back to being a four-piece. They're kind of back to basics again. The songs are a little bit rawer and a little bit heavier. The covers let it down again. We've got Mud's Tiger Feet, and because this is a US pressing, it's from 87, so it's a repress a year later. The US pressing actually had Gary Glitter's Leader of the Gang on it as well, and again, it's not a good cover. I do want to get a UK copy of this because that track is not on here. Has a bit of a Fastway vibe, some of the songs on here. Certainly the Fastway of Trick or Treat era. Hear that in a little bit of the songs, bit of the influence there. But yes, great return to form. No keyboards. We've got Bonacci on guitar, McAuliffe, Joe Weston, and Denise Dewfoot. But really good album. Yeah, check it out. So this is on GWR. Next, I have a compilation which I think came out in 1986 or 1987, but it's a raw. The label is Raw Power, I think, and this, yeah, Raw Power. Raw Power kind of they would buy up early catalogues of bands and put out compilations. So it's a double album, but all you'll get on here is tracks that were on the they released on the Bronze label, so they've just bought that the rights to those songs to put them on here. So there's the gatefold. It's got all the classic tracks on here. It's got Take It All Away, Race with the Devil, Emergency, Breakout, love that song that I mentioned, Bomber, Rock Me, Shock Me, Don't Stop. It's a good album. I wouldn't have bought this had I not found it cheap. I don't know, I'm not really a big collector of compilation albums, but hey, it's Girlschool, and there's the Raw Power label as well. The album's called Race with the Devil, and the last release of 1988, and what was ultimately the demise of Girlschool for a few years, was the apparently it was pretty rushed through, was Girlschool Take a Bite. By all accounts, their studio time was limited to the small hours of the morning. They went in the dead time of the studio to record this, and the cover was put together in super quick time, which is why it doesn't necessarily look that fantastic, but I kind of like it. The pictures as well, apparently they had to source them from fan shots as well, so they're not even professional shots. Got another lineup change here. So here we have Tracy Lamb on bass for the first time that she was in the band. So Tracy Lamb was originally in Rock Goddess, another all-female UK heavy metal band. Tracy Lamb is actually back in the band now. I saw Girlschool a few weeks ago, and they really good. Can't fault them at all. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Still belting out the tunes, 30 years later. But yeah, so Tracy Lamb is back in the band now on a third stint with the band, apparently. So good songs on here. Action, Tear It Up. First song on side 2, Head Over Heels. There's the track listing, which you can't see because it's all rubbish colours, so rubbish cover rushed. So Head Over Heels was written by Lemmy. Crappy covers. Fox on the Run by Sweet, not good. Enid Williams, the former bass player, she does backing vocals on This Time, I believe. So a little bit of a reunion going on here. But I think it's an underrated album. I think there's some really good songs on here. GWR didn't think so because they dropped them straight after this, and I'd say that's when they pretty much ceased to become a band. They did reform in the 90s, mainly as a touring band, and although they have released, I think about 4 albums since then, I've not really invested a lot of time in those albums, I have to say. I will do at some point, but to me, Girlschool were, that... just that era of the 80s, sentimental value to me, and memories and things is just keeps me going back to that older stuff. As I said, I did see them a few weeks ago, and they were just incredible. Really enjoyed that. So that's my Girlschool collection. Let me know what you think about collection videos generally. If you would like to see more, maybe let me know what you'd like to see. I've got quite a few sort of full discographies I could go through, yeah, I enjoyed doing this one. It was great to go through, and I listened to all of these albums over the course of 2 nights, and absolutely fantastic stuff. Let me know what you think of Girlschool. Let me know what your favourite album is. I'll see you again soon. Wash.